Hello, welcome. Depending on where you are in the world right now, it's either a very good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Thank you for tuning into Cavu's very first webinar. Yeah. As you can probably tell from my face and my body language, we are very, very excited about this. My name is Leigh Rathbone. I am Head of Quality Engineering here at Cavu. I'm your host for today's exciting exploration into the world of artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI, and its transformative impact on the travel industry, our industry. AI is reshaping the way we experience the world right now. It's no longer a thing of the distant future. It's happening right here. It's happening right now. It's profoundly having an influence on how we in the travel industry, how we think, how we act, and how we're putting the customers, our customers, front and center in what we do. Had we started this webinar series 12 months ago, I'm not 100% sure AI would have been our topic. But here we are with our first webinar, and it's testament to the impact AI has had that it is now our first topic and how it has had a great positive impact and influence and disruption on our industry. I'm very excited that we have two fantastic speakers today, John and Sam, and I'm going to be introducing them very, very shortly. But just for 60 more seconds, I just need to do a bit of housekeeping. So I want to start with who are Cavu. So any second now, there'll be a slide on your screen. It's visual. You can pull information from that. We're basically three companies formed together by MAG. MAG stands for Manchester Airport Group, for those of you that haven't heard that acronym before. So we're now three companies. You can see the mission at the top of the screen right there. So, you can see that we create seamless travel experiences for passengers while helping our clients and partners unlock revenue from the airport passenger journey. Why are we doing this? Why are Cavu doing a webinar? Well, a couple of reasons. We're really excited and passionate about our industry, the travel industry. And we're also really passionate about the tech and the tech community. So for this first one, we've decided to join them together and put on this webinar. Going forward, we're actually hoping that this will be a webinar series. And we're trying to aim for one every quarter, and it'll be a webinar for the travel industry. The agenda, the structure today, very, very simple. I'm just about to introduce our two speakers. They've got 10 minutes each to show us their insight as to the impact AI has had on our customers from their perspective. We're then going to go into something called a fireside chat. Now, that's a bit of webinar terminology. What is a fireside chat? Well, you imagine being in a log cabin on the side of a mountain. You've got some fire and you've got some logs on the fire and they're crackling away. And there's three friends round that fire having a chat, a nice friendly chat. That's basically what we're going to do without being on the side of a mountain and without having a fire in the room. We're basically going to have a chat. The language that we're using today in this webinar, although the three of us here, myself, John and Sam, we're techies, we accept and we know that not everyone in the room is from a technical background. So we're going to try and keep our language as simple as we possibly can. The tool that we're using is Zoom, and I'm sure most of you are okay with Zoom. The comments section has been disabled, but the Q&A section is very much enabled. Now, we're in a test and learn with this webinar. This is our first one, so we're learning as we go right in front of you live. As your host, I'm going to try and see what questions come up and see as and when I can insert them. And I'm going to try, but we've only got 45 minutes. We might slightly overrun, and we hope you'll stay with us for that. But I will be keeping an eye on the questions and just see as and when I can insert them. So it's time to buckle up. It's time to strap yourselves in. You've got first class tickets for this event. See what I did there? That was all travel terminology. Oh, yes. It's time to introduce our great speakers. First of all, John, could you introduce yourself and welcome to the Cavu webinar?
Thanks, Leigh. I'm John Hudson. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Manchester Airport Group. So as a group, we own Manchester, Stansted and East Midlands airports, and in terms of passenger numbers, we're the largest airport group in the UK.
Thank you, John. Whilst researching you, or I prefer the word stalking you, I did find a very interesting fact about you. Funnily enough, myself and you have been to the same university. However, there's a slight difference. One of us went in 1990, one of us went in 2007. What I'm going to do there, John, I'm going to allow the audience to choose and work out which one went in 1990 and which one went in 2007. But thanks, John, for your intro there. Sam, welcome to the Cavu webinar. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, thanks for having me. So I'm Sam Cooledge. I'm head of data at Cavu, and Leigh, you gave a great overview as to what Cavu is and does. And I suppose by trade, I'm a data scientist, and I look after the data function here.
Thank you, Sam. And while researching stroke stalking yourself, I unearthed, see what I've done there? I've unearthed an interesting fact about you. You've dug up a real human skull. Bring that to life for the audience.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So last year I was part of an archaeological dig on Holy Island, digging up the original Lindisfarne Abbey. And yeah, we found quite a few skeletons actually, but yeah, I was part of digging up one skeleton, one skull in particular, and we think it was a monk, and we think he'd been there about 850 years or so.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that's
very cool, very cool.
Oh, very cool. So thank you, John and Sam. And before we go to John for his first talk, I will just relay, because there's a question come through. What does Cavu stand for? It's a travel terminology. It stands for Ceiling and Visibility Unlimited. So if you're a pilot or your cabin crew, you'll know exactly what that saying is. So that's what Cavu stands for. So without further ado, John, it's over to you. The floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Leigh. So I want to talk to you about AI, obviously, as part of this. But I think when talking about AI or any tech in general, we need to understand what it is and more specifically what it's not. So if you take a definition of AI, you can say it's a branch of computer science dedicated to creating systems that can perform tasks that normally be required a human and human intelligence. For me, AI is a tool just like anything else. It's not a replacement for humans. It simply enhances our abilities. So I think that's going to be key as I talk today. So moving on, how do we actually use it? How do we as humans use it? And how we move forward? So for me, the first rule of navigation is to know where you're starting from. So if you know where you want to go, you know where you need to be right now. So if we look at AI and you take that definition that it's just trying to replicate human intelligence, you can go back to like 1848 when Ada Lovelace created the first modern computer program. You can think of Nikola Tesla presenting the first wireless remotely controlled vehicle, the Alan Turing creating the Turing test, or even in 1964 there you can see we've got Eliza, the first chatbot. So when we think about AI, we talk about it a lot at the minute being this new thing, but it's not really new. What it is, it's just a lot of systems that produce content or outcomes that can be done by a human. The difference now and what we're seeing recently since, let's say, 2022 when ChatGPT first came out, it's the difference is that we're starting to do it much better and much more consistently and much more cost effective as well. But it's that consistency that allows us to start using AI to enhance our efficiencies. So to give you an example of that, I wanted to talk you through a bit of a study that happened fairly recently between Harvard Business School and Boston Consulting Group. So they took about 758 consultants and they were all given about 18 tasks selected to be realistic samples of the kind of work that would be done at an elite consulting company. Now, for the purpose of this, it was a shoe manufacturer, but it didn't really matter what that was. What was important were 50% of the 758 consultants were given access to GPT-4 with ChatGPT. The other 50% were told to do it in a more traditional manner without access to AI. The results of that study were that 12.1% of the people with AI, of the people who had AI, 12.1% more tasks were completed. 25.1% of the tasks were done more quickly, and 40% higher quality. Now, straight away that stands out as that AI is fantastic. And I don't think I really need to convince anyone of that. And while that is interesting enough on its own, what gets even more is when you take into the skill level and take that into account of the people. So they took the 758 consultants and ranked them on their skills. So at the lower end of that, you've got people who are just starting out in their careers, or maybe graduates or juniors. And at the top end of it, you've got people who've been doing kind of marketing for decades. Now, if you take the 50%, the lower 50%, so the ones with lesser skill, the quality of their output rose by 43% compared to the top half, which only rose by 17%. What that tells us is that AI can be a balancing force. It can balance the playing field when it comes to quality and output of our team. Now, for me, that means that if I can give access to AI to my teams, the ones who haven't been coding as much, for example, get access to things like GitHub Copilot, they can start doing things that are technically beyond what they would normally be able to do, as long as we can go through and understand it, that is. And that's kind of brings me onto the other side of things, where there's always another side of the coin. In a similar experiment that was done by the same author of this, using recruiters. Now, if there's any recruiters on this webinar, this is not a slight at you at all. But the study that was done with recruiters found that those who used high quality AI became lazy, careless, and less skilled in their own judgment when looking for candidates. They missed out on some brilliant applicants, made worse decisions than recruiters who used low quality or no AI at all. So when the AI is very good, what it tells us that humans have no reason to work hard or pay attention. They let AI take over instead of using it as a tool. And the author of this study called it falling asleep at the wheel. And it can hurt human learning and skill development productivity. So the key is to ensure that we understand the limitations. Keep going back to that thing. This is a tool. We need to use it as a guide without trusting it implicitly. So that's all great. But how are we actually using this at MAG? So we have started to use AI to look at our passenger forecast. We're working with a company called Copenhagen Optimization to start forecasting when the passengers are going to turn up. Now, our aim is to get passengers through, well, 99% of passengers through security in 15 minutes or less. That's our aim. By taking large data sets of historical passenger data, flight info, as well as other advanced passenger data from airlines, we can produce 15-minute buckets of how many passengers are expected to show up to each terminal in that 15 minutes. So then what that means is we can start to use that to staff our security channels correctly. So from the start on the screen there, you can see September 2019, we managed to get 96.3% of passengers through. Now, the reason I'm using September 19 is it's pre-COVID. And it's a very, very similar number of passengers that we're seeing right now. So in both Stansted and Manchester, we're back to pre-COVID numbers as in 2019. Another important stat there is that we were seeing 7.3% standard deviation. So that expresses how much of the individual values differ from the mean average. So is it a plus or minus 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes? That's what the standard deviation is. In September 2023, we saw 98.1% of passengers through. And importantly, the standard deviation was down from 7.3 to 3.7%. This is through using AI to forecast when the passengers are going to turn up, staffing our channels more effectively, and that can increase there. Now, that may be only 1.8% increase, and it may not seem like a lot, but if you extrapolate it out across the year, that's an extra 530,000 passengers in a year that get through in security in 15 minutes or less that didn't previously in 2019. Now, that's 530,000 happier passengers. It's passengers who are going to be in the departure lounge, spending money, having a good time, making sure they're on the plane on time, and then we're not going to see late departures. So for us, that's a really important stat, and it starts to show in a very short amount of time the impact AI can have on that. Now, the future of AI holds a lot of opportunities as well for other applications. But what we were trying to do, one of our big core business values is creating a happy passenger, and that means getting through security on time. And that's about proving we've been able to prove the value of this by saying we've got happier passengers. So we've looked at things like NPS scores. But there's a lot of other things that AI can do as well. So what I don't want to do is jump the gun and start predicting what we could do with AI specifically, because someone in my position, it's very easy for some of my team to see this, or the people who are at the airport, and start saying, well, I'm going to go create this and I'm going to go create that because that's what John wants. What I expect is the team to go out and find business cases that say, actually, AI is a really good use case for this. We can prove the value of it through ABC. But there's going to be a lot of other applications. So things like Copilot for MS Teams. We're a Teams house ourselves, a Microsoft house at MAG. But Teams and Copilot have shown that you can quickly read an entire email thread in a matter of seconds, gets you cliff notes. You can start using it for suitable meeting times and finding, okay, we need these 20 people in a meeting and it needs a room. When's the next available time? And it will just do it for you. It starts creating that efficiency as an individual. Same things with like ChatGPT and Bard. You can use them to like essentially brain dump your thoughts and have them put into a concise, articulate output, saving you a lot of time to get that first draft rather than a blank piece of paper. You just brain dump into there and it will just tell you what, basically tell you what you're thinking. So as I said at the top of this deck, pretty much everything we do in tech is these days can be classed as AI. AI is this broad envelope, this broad umbrella. So I don't foresee AI dropping by the wayside like some things like NFTs or 3D TVs have done in the past. But I do see a time soon when we're going to stop using that catch-all phrase of AI, as it'll become so generic and overused. We'll get back to talking about specifics, about specific tech and its impact and its value to a business, rather than this mysterious, omnipresent silver bullet. So that's my view on AI. If anyone's got any questions, I'm open to them. Or Leigh, have you got any questions for me?
Well, I did, and you've answered them, right? So we did have a question from one of our people before the webinar, and you've also answered that. And I'll just read out this question so that Katerina knows that I've asked it. She wants to know, which metric are you planning to improve with AI technology, and how will you measure that impacts? And I think by relaying there the time through for the customer, and then the standard deviation and the NPS to measure the customer's happiness. So not just looking at sales, but actually looking at the customer happiness. I think you've actually answered Katerina's question that came through before the webinar.
Yeah, I mean, I can expand a little and say that sales is really good. It makes us happy. It may not make the customers happy specifically unless they enjoy buying things. But yeah, I think the NPS score is really important. It's enabling us to go out to the passengers and say, we've got people with iPads in the middle of the departure lounge asking them for their feedback. We've got those little machines where you've got the green face for happy, red face for angry, and amber face for somewhere in between. Lots of different metrics. We're also looking at social media data, whether it's Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, X now, and Facebook, and taking a lot of this data in and understanding how passengers are feeling. For us, if you've got a happy passenger, it means that they've gone through the airport really quickly without any delay, and they've got to doing the things they actually want to do. That's duty-free shopping, or that's eating and drinking. So if we've got happy passengers, and we know the passengers are happy, we're going to be happy.
It's a great point, John. I think if I think of this from a customer, me being a customer, just everything, getting to the airport, parking up, getting through check-in, getting through security, all of that is almost like the ingredients of what makes me a happy customer on what I call the other side, getting through security. Because that is massive regarding whether I buy that extra pint. So instead of having 1 or 2 pints, if I'm really happy, I might just have that third. Not too much, because you can't get onto a plane drunk, let's face facts. And it really does impact me, that whole journey of getting through. Although we've spoken about that, getting through security, for me, it starts from the moment I leave the house. So I think it's great to hear that there is this, you are working out how all of this pieces together to see whether the customer's happy, and then if it has an impact on spend. Brilliant, John. Anything else, John, that you'd like to add on that?
No, just if there's any questions at the end, I'll happily take them.
Brilliant. I have been checking the Q&As. We have got a couple. So the one, I don't have a name, so my apologies, they've come through as generic names, but one of them is, what is the sample size of the data, John, that you've been using? So when you build the AI models, what's the data set look like?
So for our historic flight data, for passenger turn up, yeah, that's kind of looking at turn up for historic turn up, basically. So everyone that's actually turned up at our airports, flight data. So it's our full flight history for a given day. We'll put that in. Yeah, it's really large sets of data, and that's the beauty of AI. If it was down to humans to look at this, we could say, okay, let's take a sample. But when it's AI, you don't need to take a sample. You can take all of the historic flight data for the past year, let's say.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Thank you, John. We are going to go to the fireside chat after Sam's talk. So I know we've got a couple of things to talk through, and we are getting a few questions through. So on that note, Sam, it's over to you to give your insight as to how AI is having that positive disruption feeling for our customers here at Cavu and yourself.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Cheers, Leigh. And thanks, John, as well. All right. So what I want to talk about, I'm going to talk a little bit about the specific areas that I think AI is going to transform. The promise here is that we're facing genuine transformational innovation. And what I want to think about is, how close are we to that? Are we really closer than we might imagine? Like John said, chat and large language models are quite new, but I want to think about whether or not that is nearer to us than we think. There's often a misconception around AI. We hear AI being referred to as in ways like artificial general intelligence, superhuman intelligence, the singularity. The worry and fear is that AI will transform the way that we work, at the very least, to the worst, and the very worst, it'll transform our lives entirely. And it's quite doom and gloom, it's quite sci-fi, negative outputs. My message here is that, firstly, that's not the case, right? These changes are positive, but AI has already transformed our industry, but in smaller ways, and yet far more significant ways than we might imagine. So for me, the danger isn't really about the negative effects. The danger is about wasted costs. Almost 90% of data science projects fail, right? That's the real risky area for us. I'm not going to talk too much about cost, but I'm going to come back to that as we go through. But first, I want to talk a little bit about motorbikes. So why do I want to talk about motorbikes when we're meant to be talking about AI? I want to really think about an industry that is pre-AI, pre-internet. I want to think about an industry that has been taken over by innovation in the past. So in the 80s, very early on in the 80s, in fact, 1980, Honda and Yamaha, the two massive giants of motorcycle manufacturing. Honda starts looking at cars, automobiles, and Yamaha, in its own words, launches a ninja attack by investing to heavily lower the cost of manufacturing existing cycles. In reaction, Honda declares, Yamaha wo tsubusu, which means broadly, we will crush, smash, butcher Yamaha. So when I talk about motorcycle wars, this really was a war. And these wars were playing out in the marketplace. Honda essentially invests in market research, customer research. It invests in new manufacturing processes, and it produces 113 brand new motorcycle models in the space of 12 to 18 months. Compare that to Yamaha's 37 motorcycle models, all right? In no unequivocal terms, what Honda was trying to do was what we would now call personalization. It was trying to make a motorbike for any budget, any feature requirement, any interest, whatever it was, there's a motorbike for you. And it was trying to steal market share away from Yamaha. The effect was unequivocal, right? Yamaha publicly, again, surrendered. They completely capitulated. And then the other two competitors in the market also capitulated at the same time. Honda completely dominated the market, but not without risk and cost to itself. That heavy investment into all of those things that I mentioned, that market research, the new factories, going to market, marketing itself, it produced an overproduction and a glut of motorbikes, and the cost of the motorbikes dropped. Nevertheless, if it wasn't for Honda's pursual of this risky tactic, we might not have Honda today. So there we have it. At the end of kind of 1982, the war is over, Honda's won, but product variety wasn't what won the war. 113 to 37, okay, right. They've really, really dominated in what they've put out there. That's not the breakthrough. We've had product variety for as long as we've had products. The new breakthrough here was new machines and new processes. It was the ability to do all of that fast. That innovation in the 80s was an innovation of time. AI is the brand new innovation at that tooling level. So 40 years later, we have new tools and we can do all the things that we know to be right, whether that's personalization, whether that is excite and delight and exceptional service. We can do all the things we know to be right, but faster, more cheaply. And there's that cheapness again. The cost almost tripped Honda up, right? It almost bankrupted Honda. And at the beginning of this slide deck, I started talking about the 97% of data science projects that fail. The innovation that AI brings is not just the speed, but it's the cost to get innovation and the scale. And that's where this is a game changer. Okay, let's dig one layer down. Let's look at the detail of where AI is going to contribute. These 4 pillars broadly are the areas that Honda was able to innovate along. So research. In the modern age, AI is going to be able to provide faster insights into consumer desires. We're going to be able to develop new products faster, more cheaply, and tailor those products to our customers. We're able then to go to market with personalized marketing campaigns. There used to be a saying a while ago, 50% of my marketing spend is wasted, but I don't know which 50%. You know, a lot of data started coming out and we were able to sharpen that tool. AI is going to sharpen that tool even further. And then finally, in terms of delivering and executing sales, AI is going to be a game changer. It's going to help us be efficient in our inventory, but it's also just going to generally allow us to execute everything that we promise our customers. Okay, cool. Now we understand where the comparables with Honda, those are the same 4 areas that new innovation once upon a time able to unlock. Let's talk specifically now about where Cavu's kind of focusing on. Going back to that research element, as Cavu, we are the airport passenger expert. We know more about the airport passenger than anybody else in the market. To do that, we've done a great deal of segmentation. That's using AI to understand patterns in the way that people behave. Similar to what John was talking about, we've got tools that understand open text feedback from our customers and turn that noise into signal. We also look a lot at online behavior analysis and try and understand the customer. Those insights go into new product development where we put those insights behind decisions around offerings, product bundling, offering of products to new customer markets, all that kind of thing. We then can go to market. AI powers a lot of our marketing campaigns. From understanding who wants what, to when they want it, to why they want it, it means that we can be far more targeted about what we talk about, to whom and when. And then finally, managing those services. So whether that's understanding demand, very similar to John's passenger forecast, to understanding price elasticity and looking at those booking patterns. So if those are the 4 things that are, let's say, common with Honda, I think there's an extra one. I think there is a 5th column here that is almost unique to travel businesses, that AI is going to 10x our competitive advantage. For Honda, innovation was unlocking new market share through new products. For travel, we've long enjoyed the ability to change pricing dynamically, depending on market moves. AI is going to allow us to dial up that competitive advantage. Whether our strategy is one of retention or loyalty, or maximizing revenue or maximizing occupancy, we already use a lot of dynamic pricing tools. AI is going to take that to the next level. So let's have a look at a little bit about how. For me, it's these 4 areas that really is going to, AI is going to unlock massive benefits. For a start, we can look at a lot more external data. John was talking about unstructured data. We can hoover up all of that and we can turn that into signal, whether that's cultural factors, ancillary market behaviors, even really macro global economic indicators. We can do it all in real time and we can adjust in real time. So it's a little bit like a automated factory. We can make those adjustments as and when they need to happen. The third is in that kind of personalized pricing. Now, I know everyone would say my personal pricing would be as low as possible. What I mean there is we can make sure each cohort, we understand them thoroughly and we can price accordingly so that you can get the product at the right price. And fourthly, we can do that in a very cost efficient way. So even adding in AI checks and balances, alerts, these kind of things. It's a really good example actually, because that's not, again, we shouldn't fear how AI is going to change what we do. It's going to be a tool that allows us to do more of what we can do. And it's those kind of risk averse kind of tools that I'm really excited about. So for me, in summation, AI really is the new competitive edge. For travel businesses, if we embrace AI tools, it's just like Honda embracing those tools 40 years ago. It's going to allow us to unlock market share by ensuring our products and services are personalized, that we market them at scale, that pricing is optimal, and we're taking into all the multitudinal effects that we can without incurring those high costs that almost bankrupted Honda and that have littered technological advancements in the past. So I don't think AI is going to change the way we do things. Sorry, I do think AI will change the way we do things and not what we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam and John. Two great insights there. There is a specific question for you, Sam, that has come through. And it's this. Has Cavu started implementing some of these AI solutions?
It's a good question. We're in a really unique position in being so close to MAG that we can work with the guys at MAG and understand what those problems are and develop those solutions for ourselves. Yes, is the short answer. We are bringing to bear a great deal of these developments in small areas, in focused ways, often in proof of concept, but really, and in some of the areas, like I talked about segmentation, that's something we're doing, demand forecasting, that's something we're doing. We use it every day. So yes, we run the gamut, and yeah, we're putting them into practice as we speak.
Brilliant. And I've got a question for you, Sam. It's around terminology, because we've had a question as well come through about terminology. So I've got two questions here. One, when dealing with internal teams and internal customers, have you had to change in the last 12 months since this eruption of AI? Have you had to change your terminology within Cavu itself?
Yeah, yes, I think definitely. I think sometimes we can, if we talk about AI, we don't talk, we miss the output, we miss the benefit, we miss the outcome, what we're trying to do. Sometimes it can feel like to do AI, you need to invest billions of dollars, and only a handful of people on the planet can do it. And they've got, Stanford this and Yale that, right? And they're DeepMind. And I don't think that's true. And I think if you can talk about the specific area, the value that a team is going to get, the value that a user is going to get, that in order to do that, you need to avoid using grandiose, vague terms. But at the same time, there is a time and place for it, right? It is a buzzword. And I think you can get people excited if you talk about, we're doing cutting edge stuff, and we really, really are. And I think it is going to be transformational. Yeah, I have changed how I use my language. And I think there's a time and a place for simplifying it and a time and a place for talking, call a spade a spade. Yeah.
Fantastic, Sam. And I suppose taking that one step further, which ties into the question, how have you changed your language when talking with external customers, so the partners, potential customers? Are you comfortable saying, oh, we're going to use AI to change our pricing modeling, real time? Or is that a step too far for them? Do you feel like everyone's on that sort of level playing field of understanding?
It's increasing. The number of people who are on that playing field of understanding and who respond well to that is increasing. I think you have to be sensitive sometimes. I think there is a fear factor. People often think they're going to lose their jobs or that it's going to replace people. But it is also, like I say, it is exciting. So we do still talk about AI pricing, and we do still talk about AI as a function. So yeah, it does feature in what we talk about, but you do have to modify it. And more people are getting on board, and more people are starting to use that terminology as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. Thanks very much for that insight on yourself, John. We've now reached the end of the two talks, and we'll move into what I called the fireside chat, even though there's no fire. So what I'd like to do, Sam and John, with this section is almost throw out something, a topic, a view, an opinion, and leave yourselves to give your views and insights. And the first one, it's something you said, John. So I'd like to sort of channel this one to yourself to start with. I'd like to take you on a journey. You were talking about ingesting Twitter and Facebook and free text data, and it just triggered this in me. So if I think about personalization, because you've both mentioned personalization for the customer, that for me is the end of the journey. If we go to the start of the journey, for me, it's all about the intent. Where do the intents happen, where the customer has that first intent? And for me, it's where I'm at home and I'm thinking, I'm going to book these flights. So I open the laptop, I search for flights, I put 4 flights to Spain in my basket. And when I click on view basket, John, being rather selfish, and I'll relay to the rest of the audience 3 facts about me. I'm a Villa fan. I like New Order, so I'm a New Order fan, and I'm a craft ale fan. So that's a real strange combination, probably unique, I know. But if I think about those 3 things, the data, I sell my data to the devil. It's out there, it's everywhere on social media, those 3 facts about me. When I go into view basket, I expect to see the 4 flights, and I also expect to see the following. Hey, Leigh, we found that New Order are playing 2 days after you land in Alicante at this gig. Here's the tickets. Hey, Leigh, we found out that Villa are playing 5 days after you land in Alicante in a friendly in Spain. Here's 4 tickets for you and the family. Hey, Leigh, we know you love craft ale. There is a brewery within 3 miles of Alicante Airport, and we've bought you some tickets for you and your family because we know your kids and wife are really going to love craft ale. So here's karaoke night at the craft ale brewery. Here's some tickets. And I'd love to see that as an experience for a customer in my basket. But I don't feel we're there then. We're not there yet, John. Why don't I see that as an experience for a customer?
I mean, first of all, you're right. That's a really niche thing. I don't think anyone wants to go see Villa play. But yeah, I think for me, I'm going to use a term that's probably a bit passé these days, and it's big data. There is a lot. You need a lot of data and a lot of access to it, and a lot of computation on that data. So I run the airport. I run the tech for the airport. Now, I've got access to all the data that we have. I don't currently have access to Camera, the craft brewery database. I don't have access to New Order fans, and I don't have access to a Villa database. Now, some of those things exist, some of them don't. I think the ability to kind of start collecting data now, it's available to everyone. I'm sure all those things do exist, but it then comes down to data sharing. Now, right now we go out and we work with people like car hires, and obviously between Mag and Cavu, we look at parking, we look at fast track, things that we know most passengers will want. So we can start doing that. If we had to go out and say, I need every football club, every hobby, every band, and get all their data and start looking at it, the computation it would take to do that in years gone by would be difficult. Now we've got AI and we can start doing that. I think the ability to start looking at it and finding those niche things between them is going to come around a lot sooner. So yeah, I don't think it exists right now because we've never had the ability before to look at such a large set of data and pull those bits out. But I do think that as we are getting that ability, we need to start thinking about those use cases. Again, going back to customer happiness, start asking customers coming through the airport, if there's one thing you could add onto your trip, what would it be?
Yeah.
And they may tell me craft beer, or I doubt it'll be Villa, but there's lots of other things. So we could take that and start saying, oh, you know what? A lot of people in summer, let's say pre-season, are talking about, we're traveling for the football. So maybe we start getting in touch with football clubs to get that data and start putting it together. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, it's not there because we haven't had the ability to. And right now we are in that, if you think of the dot-com boom, we are in that for AI. We're going to look back in 15 to 20 years and look back and think, wow, we were there at the very start of that.
Oh, John, you've lined me up for my next question so well. And it's one I'll give to Sam and yourself. It's a great point. If I think about my journey through tech, I've been in tech 25 years and I've worked on some what I would call groundbreaking, disruptive technology that's become mainstream. So one of them is the world's first touchscreen smartphone, which I'm holding up to my screen now. You can't really see it that well, but I worked on that 20 years ago. It still works, and the battery lasts for 7 days. I mean, that's what I call a proper phone. And I've worked on streaming, the world's first smartwatch. So I've worked on stuff that at the time I never saw as disruptive. I didn't think it would ever get mainstream. But by the time it got mainstream, I'd moved on to other jobs and other technology. For me, AI now, you've just absolutely nailed it. The question is this. Those technologies I've listed usually take 10 years to go from inception, disruption to mainstream. But AI just seems to have done it in the flash of an eye. It's almost bypassed the disruption. It's gone straight to mainstream, is my opinion. I'll go to yourself, Sam, first for this, and then John. Do you feel AI is now mainstream?
I think it's certainly getting there. I think that if, like you said, ChatGPT has been around 12 months or so. In 12 months' time, it is going to be so ubiquitous. It is going to be as ubiquitous as Excel and Word is now. And we don't call those computer science programs, right? We just refer to them as tools. We will stop probably referring to AI as AI, and we will refer to the tools that are powered by AI. But it will become so absolutely vanilla for us that, yeah, 100%. I don't know. I'm not sure if we're quite there yet, but we will be. I think that's a fact. I think, and you're totally right. The uptake has been explosive, absolutely stratospheric. I think that's testament to its usability. Yeah, I think it's going mainstream big time.
And before we go to John, you said something powerful at the end. I feel I'm living and breathing a disrupting technology for the first time. In the past, I just never felt it, even though I was working on it. So, John, what is AI mainstream?
I would say it is. And for me, with tech in general, I've got a little bit of a litmus test. And that is if it's talked about on Radio 5 Live. So for anyone outside of the UK, that is just a BBC chat radio. Now, if it's talked about on there, then for me, that's when it goes mainstream, when they're asking the general public about it. Now, a few months back, they had a whole week on AI and talking about ChatGPT. And I think the reason it's gone mainstream is that you take ChatGPT again, and we keep talking about it, but it was the 22nd of November, 2022, I believe it was, or the 30th, just less than a year ago, it came out. Now, I was speaking to my dad about it and asked my dad, and he didn't know what it was. And the difference between other tech and this, like when you talk about smartphones and smartwatches, it's just a website. So I told my dad about it, and I said, I showed him and said, write a funny poem about my dad. He's a postman called Des, who also likes football. And it wrote a poem about it, and he found it hilarious. What I was able to do was just send him a link, and he started using it. And that's the difference of how it's gone so mainstream. It's been created for free. Now we all got to remember that if something's for free, you're the customer. You're not the customer. You are what's being sold. You'd put whatever data you get put in is going to be used, and we need to be aware of that. But yeah, for me, it's definitely mainstream when anyone can use it. Like if someone on this call hadn't heard of AI, they could go use it in 3 seconds.
Great point, John. I think that also touches on something the three of us spoke about, which is there'll be a lot of people out there not quite sure of those first steps. So although myself, you, John, and Sam, we work in tech, there'll be a lot of people on this call that aren't in a tech department or a job. They'll be in other departments, and they will have maybe been a little bit overwhelmed by the current explosion of AI, everyone using the term, but they might not have got that very first step as to how do I now take it into marketing, HR, finance? And we say, well, it's easy, you just go on a website, but there'll still be a bit of a fear factor, even the story of your dad, John, embracing it. Sam, if I could just come to you for this one, what advice would you give to people who work in other departments that maybe haven't had chance to put their head above the parapet and say, oh, okay, I'll take this first baby step? What would that first baby step look like for them?
Sure, fair. And I think something we talked about a little earlier, right, about language. Sometimes talking about AI, it feels really big, really, really complicated, really, really hard. I can't remember the quote off the top of my head, but Steve Jobs said something along the lines of, everything you see in the world was invented by a human, right? And except the things that weren't, obviously. This is something you can get your head around. That's the first thing to realize. You can communicate with AI, you can use AI as easy as, texting a mate. And that's the first thing I would do. I'd go to OpenAI, I'd go to Bard, search for these things, and just start talking to it, start asking it questions. Yeah. And then the next time that you have a project in work, or anything else for that matter, you could be planning a trip, you could be doing anything you want to be doing. Think about asking ChatGPT or asking any of these other entities out there, and just see what it's good at and see what it's not so good at. There are things that you need to be mindful of. There's hallucinations and things like this, and so you've got to be careful about how you use it, but take the plunge. It's really, really easy, and that's why it's transformational. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah, and I would probably add to that, Sam, and say ask for help. For those people that have used it, ask for them to come and sit next to you or remotely pair on a screen with you and step you through the very first steps, because pairing is sharing, right? And sharing is caring, right? So there's a nice little saying there that you can put on a t-shirt, folks, for free. I've not patented that one. We haven't run out of time, but I'll just ask one more question if I can, because it has come from someone that asked this question before the webinar started. So if everyone can bear with us for maybe 3-4 more minutes, I'll ask this one question. And John, I'll come to yourself first with this one. And it's this. So it's around quality. So how do we guarantee the quality of any AI-driven insights? And John, if you'd like to take that one first.
Yeah, I think it's about the data that goes in. And so first of all, yeah, you've got to check your data. You've got to understand where your data is coming from. You can't just take a random data set from somewhere, throw it in, and expect good results. You get in what you put out. You get out what you put in. So it's understanding that. Then it's about checks and balances as well. So when we're doing forecast turn up, as the example earlier on, every now and then we'll have someone with a click account and how many people are showing up at the right times, or we'll be looking at someone just going out and manually checking the same things when we're doing AI turnarounds. So this is where we're doing a project at the minute to look at how we can monitor the turnaround of each plane and understand if it's going to be on time or not. Right now, people do that manually, and we will continue to do it manually. For certain planes, they'll get randomly selected, they'll go do them, and they'll check them, and we'll check it against the data. It's about checks and balances in place, and depending on the security levels and the criticality levels of the applications you build in, that's going to change here and there. But you're always going to need humans. Like I said, it's never going to be a case of we're not looking to replace humans, because humans don't do every turnaround right now. What we're looking to do is have the same humans do the same job they're doing right now, but instead of saying, okay, we have 5 planes tracked in a day, we've got 300 planes tracked in a day, and we've got 5 that have also been tracked by humans, and we can use that data to check and balance against the data that the AI has given us. So that's what I mean when it's a tool to enhance our abilities.
Yeah, great shout, John. And Sam, very quickly, have you got anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I'd echo what John's saying, and good governance is absolutely key. With every emerging tool, you need to understand, its limits. There is a lot of research in the 12 months since we've had, ChatGPT 3 and ChatGPT 4. There's a lot of research. I know we didn't want to go too technical, but I will say, once upon a time, about 12 months ago, these large language models were producing the answer. They were generating the answer. The technology's moved on in the last 12 months. The concept called RAG, retrieval augmented generation, where LLMs are generating the query to query real data. And that is a check and balance to stop hallucinations, so that it retrieves real data instead of making the real data up. And it's developments along those kind of lines that seem incremental, but we need to be laser focused in where we apply this tool, and that's what's going to enable it to be developed in the right ways and for the right things. So there are innovations happening within that innovation space that are going to keep us within that kind of accuracy and control and quality sphere. Yeah, that's happening at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Sam and John. Good answers to the question there. I think I would just say before I wrap up, the story that I gave about me selling my data to the devil, right? That's me. I acknowledge and I appreciate that a lot of people like to keep their data private. So there have been some questions. One, is Leigh crazy giving his data away? That's my choice. That's what I do. But I totally respect that that is not where the majority of people are, and people have actually gone the other way of keeping their data more and more private now. I just wanted to use that as an example to lead into the story to get a good answer from John and Sam. The other thing I'll end on is this. Manchester Airport Group, MAG, and Cavu, we're based in Manchester predominantly. We have people around the country, around the world that work for us, but predominantly we have large amounts of people that are from Manchester or the surrounding area. Manchester is famous for its engineering background, but it's also very famous for its musical background. So I want to bring one story to life for the audience here, just to relay that point that Sam and John have both made about AI enhancing your work life, enhancing the customer journey and not replacing humans. So I want to tell this story. In Manchester in 1982, there was a band called New Order. I've already mentioned them. They're my favourite band. The drummer from that band is called Stephen Morris. In 1982, the band bought a drum machine. And Stephen Morris, as the drummer, was a little bit upset. He thought the band were trying to get rid of him. Instead, the band said, see how it can help and enhance your drumming. So he learned the drum machine. He learned how to program it, how to use it. So 3 things happened. 1, he was able to add value for New Order songs by just having the drum machine do the drums. 2, he used the drum machine and the drums on some of the songs to create a unique sound. 3, on the time where he used the drum machine for the songs, he used his time to go and learn another instrument, the keyboard. So the value add he did by embracing that new technology was that he was able to add value to his team, the band, and he was able to influence the music they created. Now, I'd like to leave that with everybody to really enhance what Sam and John have both landed through this 45 minutes. I would love to thank Sam and John, both of you. Sam, John, thank you so much for giving up your time to do these talks today. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. This has been a fascinating discussion. I'd like to thank you both and give for you giving your perspective. But I'd like to thank the people that have joined us. Absolutely brilliant that you've given up your time to join this webinar. There's been some great questions about ethics, about how stupid I am to give my data away, which is absolutely right. I was just making up the story, to be honest. Loads of questions that we could have gone on and on. I think this could have been a 2-hour thing. We'll be sharing a recording of this session so you can watch it back and pick up other stuff that maybe you didn't pick up the first time. So thank you so much, everybody, for giving up your time. If you want to get in touch with Cavu to help your business, then please get in touch. We're here to help. We are Cavu. My name is Leigh Rathbone, and thank you very much for your time. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Leigh. Thanks very much. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, Leigh. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Sam.